Mia Bennett clutched her purse tightly as she navigated through the grand ballroom of the Westbrook Hotel, the most luxurious venue in Boston. The charity gala buzzed with elegance and wealth, a world apart from her modest apartment where a babysitter was watching her 6-year-old daughter, Zoe. Mia's emerald dress, purchased second-hand and altered by her own hands, swished around her ankles as she tried to appear as though she belonged among the city's elite. She shouldn't have been there at all. The invitation had arrived at her workplace, the prestigious Holloway Foundation, where she served as an administrative assistant. Her boss had fallen ill at the last minute and insisted Mia attend in her place, claiming it would be good experience. What her boss hadn't mentioned was how utterly out of place Mia would feel amid the glittering chandeliers and designer gowns. "Just one glass of champagne," she whispered to herself. "Then I'll make my excuses and leave." Taking a flute from a passing waiter, Mia scanned the room for a quiet corner where she could observe the proceedings without drawing attention. The numbered tables stretched across the ballroom in perfect formation. Mia glanced at her ticket, table 17. She navigated around clusters of laughing guests, their jewelry catching the light with every gesture. Her sensible heels clicked softly against the marble floor as she searched for her assigned seat. 17, 17, she murmured, relief washing over her when she spotted the table near the center of the room. It seemed oddly empty compared to the others, with only one place setting. Perhaps the foundation had been allocated just one seat. Grateful for the relative privacy, Mia slipped into the chair and took a sip of champagne. What she didn't notice was the small placard beside her plate that read, "Reserved, Mr. Jackson Hayes." Nor did she register the sudden hush that fell over the nearby tables as several pairs of eyes turned in her direction. Jackson Hayes was running late, which he detested. The 34-year-old CEO of Hayes Innovations had built his reputation on punctuality, among other things. His driver had taken a wrong turn, adding 15 minutes to their journey. By the time he strode into the ballroom, the first course was already being served. His tailored tuxedo and commanding presence parted the crowd effortlessly as he made his way toward the center of the room. Jackson was used to the stares, the whispers about his billion-dollar technology empire, the speculation about his bachelor status, the gossip about his intensely private nature. What he wasn't prepared for was finding someone sitting at his private table. The woman in the emerald dress seemed oblivious to the commotion she was causing. Her chestnut hair was styled simply, falling in soft waves around her shoulders. She was studying the program with such concentration that she didn't notice his approach until his shadow fell across the table. "I believe you're in my seat," Jackson said, his deep voice carrying just enough authority to make several nearby conversations halt. Mia looked up, confusion giving way to mortification as she registered the tall figure looming over her. His dark eyes held hers for a moment that seemed to stretch into eternity. She recognized him immediately from magazine covers and news segments. Jackson Hayes, the tech genius whose innovations had revolutionized renewable energy storage. I'm so sorry," she stammered, nearly knocking over her champagne as she scrambled to gather her purse. "The ticket said table 17, and I just assumed—" "Table 17?" Jackson interrupted, his brow furrowing. He glanced at the small ticket she was clutching. "That table is in the East Wing. This is table 71. The blood drained from Mia's face as she realized her mistake. The 1 inch on her ticket had a slight smudge that made it resemble a 7 inches in the dimly lit ballroom. She was sitting at the wrong table, not just any wrong table, but the private table of one of the most powerful men in the country. "I'll leave immediately," she said, standing so quickly that her chair threatened to topple backward. Jackson's hand shot out to steady it, his fingers brushing against hers in the process. A strange current seemed to pass between them at the contact. What happened next stunned everyone watching. Instead of displaying the cold dismissal many expected, Jackson's expression softened. Perhaps it was the genuine mortification in her eyes, or the dignified way she held herself despite her embarrassment. "What's your name?" he asked, his voice lower now, meant only for her. "Mia Bennett," she replied, still poised to flee. "I'm here representing the Holloway Foundation. My boss couldn't attend." Something shifted in Jackson's gaze, a flicker of interest. "The Holloway Foundation? The educational nonprofit?" Mia nodded, surprised he was familiar with her workplace. Jackson pulled out the chair across from his own. Please sit. I'd like to hear more about your work. A collective gasp rippled through the nearby tables. Jackson Hayes never shared his private table. Never. I couldn't possibly, Mia began. I insist, he said, and there was something in his tone that suggested he wasn't accustomed to being refused. Unless you'd prefer to find table 17, Mia hesitated, torn between propriety and curiosity. The intensity of his gaze made her heart beat faster. Why? The question seemed to surprise him. Most people didn't question Jackson Hayes. Because, he said after a moment, I've been hoping to speak with someone from Holloway. Their work aligns with a project I'm developing. He paused, a hint of a smile touching his lips. And because I'd rather not dine alone tonight. Against her better judgment, Mia slowly sat down. The waiters, who had been hovering uncertainly, immediately approached to serve the first course. As the evening progressed, Mia found herself engaged in the most stimulating conversation she'd had in years. Jackson asked insightful questions about the Foundation's educational initiatives for underprivileged children. His interest seemed genuine, his knowledge extensive. What neither of them noticed was the woman watching from across the room, her perfectly manicured nails digging into her palm. Victoria Sinclair had expected to be invited to Jackson's table by the end of the night. The socialite and daughter of Jackson's biggest competitor had been trying to secure his attention for months. Now her cold blue eyes narrowed as she watched him laugh at something the unknown woman in the emerald dress had said. Who is she? Victoria demanded of her companion. Nobody, came the reply. Just some admin from one of the charities. Victoria's red lips curved into a dangerous smile. Find out everything about her, she whispered. Everything. Meanwhile, as dessert was served, Mia checked her phone discreetly and saw 3 missed calls from her babysitter. Panic flashed across her features. Is something wrong? Jackson asked, noticing the change immediately. I need to go, Mia said, her maternal instincts overriding all else. It's my daughter. You have a child? Jackson's expression was unreadable. Yes, Zoe, she's 6. Mia stood, no longer concerned with social niceties. Thank you for your kindness, Mr. Hayes, but I really must leave. Jackson stood as well, towering over her. Let me call my driver for you. That's not necessary. It's pouring rain, he said, nodding toward the windows where indeed a storm had begun to rage outside. Please, allow me this courtesy. Before she could protest further, he had summoned his driver with a text. As they waited by the entrance for the car to arrive, an uncomfortable silence fell between them. Your daughter, Jackson finally said. And her father? Mia stiffened. Not in the picture. Jackson nodded, seeming to absorb this information carefully. The sleek black car pulled up and he opened an umbrella, escorting her to the vehicle. Just before she ducked inside, he pressed a business card into her hand. I meant what I said about being interested in Holloway's work, he said, rain dripping from the edge of the umbrella. Call me tomorrow. Mia looked down at the heavy cardstock with his private number embossed in silver. When she looked up again, something in his eyes made her breath catch. It wasn't pity or charity she saw there. It was respect and perhaps something more. Goodbye, Mr. Hayes, she said, sliding into the luxurious car. Jackson, he corrected. And this isn't goodbye, Mia Bennett. I'm quite certain of that. As the car pulled away, Mia clutched the business card, unaware that her simple mistake had set in motion events that would change her life forever, or that the woman watching her departure from the hotel entrance was already planning to ensure that Mia Bennett never got close to Jackson Hayes again. The following morning, Mia woke to Zoe bouncing on her bed, her daughter's curly hair wild from sleep and her gap-toothed smile bright in the early light. Mommy, was the party fancy? Did you dance with a prince? Zoe's imagination, fueled by the fairy tales they read together, always transformed Mia's rare evenings out into magical adventures. No dancing, Mia laughed, pulling her daughter into a hug. But it was very fancy, and I met someone interesting. The memory of Jackson Hayes, his intense gaze, the unexpected kindness, lingered like a vivid dream. Was he handsome? Zoe asked, with the directness only children can manage. Mia tickled her ribs instead of answering. Time for breakfast, little miss. You have school and I have work. Their morning routine was a well-choreographed dance in their small 2-bedroom apartment. While Zoe ate cereal at their tiny kitchen table, Mia prepared lunch and checked the weather forecast. Rain again. April in Boston was proving particularly wet this year. "Don't forget your rain boots," Mia reminded, as she helped Zoe into her yellow raincoat. "And Mrs. Garcia will pick you up from after school today." "Because you have a meeting," Zoe finished, already familiar with their Tuesday schedule. Only after dropping Zoe at school did Mia allow herself to think about the business card tucked in her purse. Should she call? The foundation could certainly benefit from a connection with Hayes Innovations, but something about Jackson's interest made her wary. Wealthy men didn't typically pay attention to single mothers who worked administrative jobs. By the time she arrived at the Holloway Foundation's modest offices, Mia had convinced herself to be professional. She would call, thank him for his hospitality, and explore any legitimate interest he had in the foundation's work. "There she is," Gloria, her boss, called as Mia entered. The older woman was back at her desk, though still looking pale. "Tell me everything about the gala. Did you make any useful connections?" Mia hesitated, then placed Jackson's card on Gloria's desk. "I met Jackson Hayes." Gloria's eyes widened comically. "The Jackson Hayes? How on earth did you manage that? He's notoriously private." "I accidentally sat at his table," Mia admitted, feeling her cheeks warm at the memory. "It was mortifying, but he was kind about it." "Kind?" Gloria looked skeptical. "The man who reduced Senator Williams to stammers during last year's technology oversight hearing was kind. He seemed genuinely interested in our education initiatives," Mia said. "He asked me to call him." Gloria leaned forward, suddenly energized despite her recent illness. "This could be huge for us, Mia. Hayes's foundation gives major grants to education programs." "I know," Mia sighed, "but I don't want to be the one to make the call. You're the director. It should come from you." "Nonsense. He gave you his card, not me." Gloria pushed the card back toward Mia. "Call him today." Mia reluctantly agreed, but hours passed as she busied herself with other tasks. It wasn't until lunchtime that she finally retreated to the small courtyard behind the building, Jackson's card in one hand and her phone in the other. After 2 rings, a deep voice answered. "Hayes." "Mr. Hayes? This is Mia Bennett from last night, from the Holloway Foundation," she added quickly. A pause. "Mia, I was beginning to think you wouldn't call. I'm sorry for the delay. It's been a busy morning." She took a breath. "I wanted to thank you again for your graciousness last night and to see if you were serious about discussing Holloway's work." "I'm always serious about business, Miss Bennett." His tone was different today, more formal, more guarded. "Are you free for lunch tomorrow?" The question caught her off guard. "Lunch?" "To discuss potential synergies between Hayes Innovations and the Holloway Foundation," he clarified. "Unless that's not of interest." "No. I mean, yes, it's of interest." Mia closed her eyes, frustrated with her awkwardness. "Tomorrow would be fine." "Excellent. My assistant will email you the details." The call ended before Mia could say more. She stared at her phone, wondering what she had just agreed to. Back in her office, an email arrived within minutes, containing details for lunch at Maison Bleue, one of the most exclusive restaurants in Boston. Gloria was ecstatic, already envisioning the funding possibilities. "This could transform our summer program," she gushed. "With Hayes backing, we could expand to serve twice as many children." Mia nodded, trying to focus on the opportunity for the foundation rather than the inexplicable nervousness she felt. That evening, as she helped Zoe with homework, her phone pinged with a text from an unknown number. "Looking forward to tomorrow. JTH." She stared at the message, unsure how to respond or why Jackson Hayes would text her personally when his assistant had already handled the arrangements. "Mommy, you're not listening," Zoe complained, tugging at her sleeve. "I'm sorry, sweetie." Mia put the phone away, giving her daughter her full attention. Later, after Zoe was asleep, Mia searched online for information about Jackson Hayes. The articles painted a picture of a brilliant but intensely private man who had built his empire from a single patent he'd developed in college. There were few personal details, no mention of relationships, though plenty of speculation. One article mentioned his dedication to his younger sister, who had died of leukemia when he was 25. The loss had apparently driven his company's significant investments in medical research. The next morning, Mia dressed with particular care, selecting a conservative navy dress that she hoped struck the right balance between professional and appropriate for an upscale restaurant. She arrived at Maison Bleue precisely on time, her heart racing as the maitre d' led her to a private dining room in the back. Jackson rose as she entered, and Mia was struck again by his imposing presence. Today, he wore a charcoal suit that emphasized his broad shoulders and the lean strength of his frame. "Miss Bennet," he greeted her, gesturing to the chair across from him. "Mr. Hayes." She sat, placing her portfolio on the table. "I've brought information about our current initiatives and areas where we're hoping to expand." Jackson nodded, but made no move to take the folder. Instead, he studied her face with an intensity that made her shift uncomfortably. "Before we discuss business," he said, "I'd like to know more about you." Mia blinked. "Me? I'm just the administrative assistant. Gloria West is the executive director. She's the one who—" "I'm aware of Miss West's position," Jackson interrupted smoothly, "but you're the one who caught my interest. Tell me about your daughter." The personal nature of the question took Mia aback. "Zoe is 6, she said cautiously. "She's in 1st grade at Lincoln Elementary." "Public school?" "Yes." Mia lifted her chin slightly, detecting something in his tone. "It's an excellent school with dedicated teachers." Jackson's expression softened. "I attended public school until high school. My parents couldn't afford private education until I received a scholarship." This glimpse into his background surprised her. "I didn't know that." "There's a lot people don't know about me," he said, his eyes never leaving hers, "just as I suspect there's more to Mia Bennet than being just an administrative assistant." The waiter arrived with appetizers Mia hadn't realized Jackson had pre-ordered. As they began to eat, the conversation shifted to safer ground. The foundation's work, Hayes Innovations' philanthropic goals, potential areas of collaboration. Halfway through the main course, Jackson's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, frowning. "Excuse me for a moment," he said, stepping away from the table. While he was gone, Mia's own phone lit up with a text from a colleague. "Why is Victoria Sinclair asking questions about you?" Mia stared at the message in confusion. Victoria Sinclair. The name sounded vaguely familiar, but she couldn't place it. Before she could respond, Jackson returned, his expression troubled. "I apologize, but something's come up that requires my immediate attention. My driver will take you back to your office." "Is everything all right?" Mia asked, concerned by the sudden change in his demeanor. "Just business," he said shortly. Then, seeming to realize his abruptness, he added more gently, "I'd like to continue our discussion." "Are you free for dinner on Friday?" "Dinner?" Mia repeated, caught off guard once again. "To finalize the details of Hayes Innovations' support for Holloway's summer program," he explained, though something in his eyes suggested there might be more to the invitation. "I would have to arrange childcare," Mia said, thoughts racing, "for Zoe." "Bring her," Jackson said simply. "We'll make it early. I know a place that makes excellent milkshakes." The unexpected suggestion, the thought of this powerful billionaire sitting down to milkshakes with her daughter, rendered Mia momentarily speechless. "Unless that's inappropriate?" he asked, when she didn't respond. "No, it's not that," Mia said quickly. "It's just unexpected." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "I'm finding that many things about you are unexpected, Mia Bennet." As his driver took her back to the office, Mia couldn't shake the feeling that something significant was happening, something that went beyond professional networking. She also couldn't dismiss a growing unease, as if she were missing some crucial piece of information. That evening, she researched Victoria Sinclair and found images of the stunning blonde socialite at various charity events, including several where she was photographed with Jackson Hayes. In one photo from 6 months ago, they were standing close together, his hand at the small of her back. The discovery shouldn't have bothered her. Jackson's personal life was none of her business. Yet as she prepared for bed, Mia found herself wondering exactly what she was getting into, and whether the interest Jackson Hayes had shown in the Holloway Foundation was truly about philanthropy or something else entirely. Friday arrived with unexpected sunshine after days of rain. Mia spent the morning juggling her regular duties at the foundation with preparations for the Education Committee meeting, where she would present the potential partnership with Hayes Innovations. Gloria had been ecstatic when Mia reported that Jackson seemed interested in funding their summer program, though Mia had carefully omitted the dinner invitation that included Zoe. "Miss Bennet?" A delivery person appeared at her office door, holding an enormous arrangement of white lilies and blue hydrangeas. "These are for you." Mia accepted the flowers with surprise, searching for a card among the blooms. The small envelope contained a handwritten note. "Looking forward to our dinner tonight. The reservation is at 5:30. My driver will pick you both up at 5 o'clock. Jackson." She traced her finger over the firm strokes of his handwriting, a flutter of nervousness in her stomach. Why would he send flowers? It seemed excessive for a business meeting, even one involving milkshakes. Secret admirer? Gloria appeared in the doorway, eyebrows raised at the lavish arrangement. "They're from Mr. Hayes," Mia admitted, feeling her cheeks warm. "A courtesy before our meeting tonight." Gloria's expression turned knowing. "I've been in non-profit development for 20 years, and I've never received flowers from a potential donor." She leaned against the doorframe. "Is there something you're not telling me, Mia?" "It's not like that," Mia insisted. "He's interested in the foundation's work." Gloria hummed skeptically. "And the fact that you're a beautiful, intelligent woman has nothing to do with it." "I'm bringing Zoe," Mia countered, as if this proved the meeting's professional nature. Gloria's eyebrows shot up even higher. "You're introducing your daughter to Jackson Hayes. Now I'm really intrigued." "It was his suggestion," Mia said defensively. "He knows I'm a single mother with childcare constraints." "Of course," Gloria nodded, clearly unconvinced. "Well, whatever his motives, keep him interested in the foundation. We need that summer program funding." After Gloria left, Mia sat staring at the flowers. What were Jackson's motives? The cynical part of her, the part shaped by her ex-husband's betrayal, whispered that powerful men like Jackson Hayes didn't pursue women like her without ulterior motives. Her thoughts were interrupted by her phone ringing with an unknown number. "Hello? Miss Bennett?" The voice was female, crisp and professional. "This is Diane Ward, Mr. Hayes's executive assistant. I'm calling to confirm your dinner arrangements for this evening." "Yes, my daughter and I will be ready at 5, Mia replied. "Excellent. Also, Mr. Hayes wondered if you had any dietary restrictions he should be aware of, for you or your daughter." The thoughtfulness of the question caught Mia off guard. "No, no restrictions, though Zoe doesn't like spicy foods." "Noted," Diane said. "And one more thing. Mr. Hayes suggested that the restaurant, while casual, has a small play area. Your daughter might enjoy bringing a toy or book." After hanging up, Mia sat back, puzzled by the care being taken to accommodate Zoe. It seemed at odds with the ruthless businessman portrayed in the media. The rest of the day passed in a blur of meetings and paperwork. By the time Mia picked up Zoe from school, she was already running late. "We're having dinner with someone important," she explained as they rushed home. "A potential donor for the foundation." "Is he handsome?" Zoe asked, echoing her question from earlier in the week. This time Mia couldn't dodge it. Some people might think so. "Is he nice?" A more complicated question. "He seems to be," Mia answered carefully. At home, she helped Zoe change into a simple blue dress before quickly refreshing her own makeup and switching to a more casual outfit, dark jeans and a soft cream sweater. As promised, a sleek black car arrived precisely at 5, the same driver from the gala night nodding respectfully as he held the door open. "Are we riding in a princess car?" Zoe whispered, eyes wide at the luxury vehicle. Mia smiled, seeing the situation through her daughter's eyes. Just for tonight. The restaurant wasn't what Mia expected. Rather than another exclusive establishment, the driver took them to Millie's, a family-friendly place known for its comfort food and relaxed atmosphere. Jackson was already waiting at a corner booth, dressed more casually than she'd seen him before in dark jeans and a grey button-down shirt. He stood as they approached, his eyes warming as they landed on Zoe. "You must be the famous Zoe Bennett," he said, crouching slightly to meet her at eye level. "Your mom has told me about you." Zoe regarded him solemnly before declaring, "You're very tall." Jackson's laugh was genuine, a rich sound that Mia realized she hadn't heard before. "I am." "Does that make you nervous?" Zoe considered this, then shook her head. "No. My friend Max's dad is tall too. He gives good shoulder rides." "I've been known to give excellent shoulder rides," Jackson said seriously, "but only to very brave girls who eat all their dinner." This negotiation seemed acceptable to Zoe, who climbed into the booth while Mia watched the interaction with a mixture of amusement and wariness. The dinner progressed with surprising ease. Jackson showed remarkable patience with Zoe's constant questions, answering each one thoughtfully. He spoke about growing up with a younger sister, carefully editing out the painful parts of the story, but sharing fond memories that made Zoe giggle. "You're good with children," Mia observed, during a moment when Zoe was distracted by the restaurant's small play area visible from their table. "I've had practice," Jackson said. "My sister was 7 years younger, and I sponsor a children's hospital wing, so I visit regularly." "I didn't read about that in any of the articles about you," Mia said, then immediately wished she could take the words back when his eyebrow raised. "You've been researching me, Miss Bennett." "Just basic due diligence," she said, trying to sound professional, "before entering into a potential partnership." "Of course," he agreed, though his eyes held a hint of amusement. "And what did your due diligence reveal?" Mia hesitated. "That you're very private. That you built your company from a single patent. That you lost your sister to leukemia." His expression sobered. "All true." "And that you have connections to Victoria Sinclair," she added, watching his reaction carefully. Something flashed in his eyes. Irritation? "Business connections," he said shortly. "Her father's company has partnered with mine on several projects." "Just business?" Mia pressed, surprising herself with her boldness. Jackson studied her for a long moment. "Victoria believed there was more," he finally said. "I never did." Before Mia could respond, Zoe returned to the table, bringing with her a burst of childish energy that dispelled the tension. When milkshakes arrived, chocolate for Zoe, strawberry for Mia, vanilla for Jackson, the conversation shifted to lighter topics. It wasn't until they were nearly finished with dinner that Jackson finally brought up business. "I've reviewed Holloway's summer program proposal," he said, pulling a folder from a leather messenger bag beside him. "I'm prepared to fund it, with some additional provisions." Mia accepted the folder, excitement building as she scanned the document inside. The proposed donation was 3 times what they'd hoped for, with a commitment for 3 years of funding. "This is incredibly generous," she said, looking up at him in amazement. "But what additional provisions?" "2 things," Jackson said, his tone becoming more businesslike. "First, I want the program expanded to include a technology component, coding classes, specifically. Hayes Innovations will provide the equipment and instructors." Mia nodded. "That's actually perfect. We've wanted to add STEM education but lacked the resources." "Good." He hesitated, then continued. "Second, I want your involvement in the program to be expanded. I'd like you to be the project director, with appropriate compensation adjustments." Mia stared at him. "But I'm not qualified. I'm an administrative assistant." "With a master's degree in education that you've never mentioned," Jackson countered, "and 5 years of teaching experience before joining Holloway." The blood drained from Mia's face. "How do you know that?" "The same way you researched me," he said evenly. "Due diligence." Mia felt suddenly cold. Had he investigated her? The thought was unsettling. "Mr. Hayes—" "Jackson," he corrected. "And before you protest, your qualifications are exactly what this program needs. Gloria agrees." "You spoke with Gloria about this? Behind my back?" Mia's voice rose slightly, causing Zoe to look up from her coloring book. Jackson had the grace to look somewhat abashed. "I called her this afternoon to discuss the donation. Your name came up naturally." Mia took a deep breath, trying to process this development. The opportunity was incredible. Exactly the kind of role she'd dreamed of, but hadn't dared pursue since becoming a single mother. The stability of her administrative position had seemed more important than career advancement. "I'd need to think about it," she said finally. "Discuss it with Gloria. Understand what it would mean for my current responsibilities." "Of course," Jackson nodded. "Take the weekend. We can discuss it further on Monday." As if sensing his mother's discomfort, Zoe yawned dramatically. "I'm tired, Mommy." Grateful for the interruption, Mia gathered their things. "We should head home. It's past her bedtime." Jackson insisted on driving them, dismissing his chauffeur for the evening and taking the wheel himself. His car was as luxurious as expected, but Mia was surprised to see a booster seat already installed in the back. "You thought of everything," she commented as she secured Zoe in the seat. "I try to," he said simply. The drive to their apartment was quiet, Zoe already half asleep in the back seat. When they arrived, Jackson insisted on walking them to their door, despite Mia's protests. "Thank you for dinner," she said as they reached her apartment, "and for the generous offer to the foundation." Jackson looked down at her, his expression unreadable in the dim hallway light. It wasn't entirely altruistic, he admitted. I wanted to spend time with you, both of you, he added, glancing at the sleepy child in Mia's arms. The confession hung between them, loaded with implications. Before Mia could formulate a response, the door across the hall opened, revealing her elderly neighbor, Mrs. Patel. Mia, dear, I was just about to knock. You received a package today, and I signed for it. The older woman's eyes widened as she took in Jackson's imposing figure. Oh, I didn't realize you had company. Thank you, Mrs. Patel. This is Mr. Hayes, a colleague. Mia fumbled for the right word. Friend, Jackson corrected smoothly, extending his hand to the curious neighbor. It's a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Patel. After retrieving the package, a book Mia had ordered for Zoe, and saying goodnight to Mrs. Patel, an awkward silence fell between them. I should get her to bed, Mia said finally, nodding toward Zoe, who was now struggling to keep her eyes open. Of course. Jackson hesitated, then added, I enjoyed tonight, Mia. Very much. The sincerity in his voice made something flutter in her chest. So did I. And Zoe clearly did too. Good night, then. He bent slightly, pressing a brief, gentle kiss to her cheek. The contact was fleeting but left her skin tingling. I'll call you on Monday. Mia watched him walk away, conflicting emotions swirling within her. There was something about Jackson Hayes that drew her in despite her reservations, a depth beneath the powerful exterior that intrigued her. What she didn't see was the sleek car parked across the street, or the woman inside it watching through tinted windows as Jackson left the modest apartment building. Victoria Sinclair's perfectly manicured nails tapped against the steering wheel as she made a phone call. I've found his weakness, she said into the phone, the little girl. And I know exactly how to use it. Monday morning arrived with a steady downpour that matched Mia's turbulent thoughts. She had spent the weekend alternating between excitement about the job opportunity and anxiety about Jackson's true intentions. Zoe, however, had talked about nothing but Mr. Jack and his promised shoulder rides, which only complicated Mia's feelings further. When she arrived at the foundation, Gloria ambushed her immediately. There you are. Why didn't you tell me how well your dinner went? Jackson Hayes called me personally on Saturday. It was fine, Mia said cautiously, hanging her wet raincoat. Did he mention the project director position? Of course, it's a brilliant opportunity, Gloria beamed. Though I'll miss having you as my right hand. Come to my office. We need to discuss the transition plan. For the next hour, they reviewed the details of the new position. The salary was nearly double what Mia currently earned, with flexibility for school pickups and emergencies. A working parent's dream. It's as if the position was designed specifically for you, Gloria remarked, giving Mia a significant look. That's what concerns me, Mia admitted. Why would Jackson Hayes create a position tailored to my circumstances? We barely know each other. Gloria's expression softened. Not everyone has ulterior motives, Mia. Sometimes opportunities arise because people recognize talent. Perhaps, Mia said, unconvinced. But he's investigated my background without my knowledge. Doesn't that seem intrusive? In the corporate world, that's standard due diligence, Gloria shrugged. Besides, his foundation is investing over $500,000 in our program. He has every right to ensure it's managed properly. The logic was sound, yet something still felt off to Mia. Before she could articulate her concerns, her phone buzzed with a text message. Need to see you. Urgent matter regarding the program. Can you meet at my office at noon, JH? Mia showed the message to Gloria, who waved her off immediately. Go. This is exactly the kind of direct access to Hayes we've been hoping for. 2 hours later, Mia found herself in the gleaming headquarters of Hayes Innovations, being escorted by Diane, Jackson's assistant, through corridors of glass and steel. Employees glanced at her curiously as she passed. Mr. Hayes is in a call, but he'll be with you shortly, Diane said, showing Mia into a modernist conference room with sweeping views of Boston Harbor. Can I get you anything while you wait? I'm fine, thank you, Mia replied, taking a seat and trying not to appear intimidated by her surroundings. Left alone, she studied the room. One wall featured framed patents, Jackson's early innovations. Another displayed photographs of Hayes Innovations projects around the world, solar installations in Africa, wind farms in the Midwest, a children's hospital wing with a plaque bearing the Hayes name. Admiring my life's work, Mia turned to find Jackson standing in the doorway, looking every inch the powerful CEO in a perfectly tailored suit. His expression, however, seemed strained. "It's impressive," she acknowledged. "Your message said this was urgent?" Jackson closed the door and took a seat across from her. "I received some disturbing information this morning that concerns you and Zoe." Mia felt a chill. "What information?" "Victoria Sinclair has been investigating you," he said bluntly. "Quite extensively. The woman you have business connections with." Mia couldn't keep the edge from her voice. Jackson's jaw tightened. "Victoria's father and I have business ties. She and I attended several events together last year before I realized she had expectations I wasn't prepared to meet. And now she's investigating me? Why?" "Because she saw us together at the gala," Jackson said. "Victoria doesn't handle rejection well. She's been trying to discredit anyone I show interest in since our falling out." Mia processed this information, anxiety building. "What exactly has she discovered?" Jackson hesitated. "She found out about the restraining order you filed against your ex-husband 3 years ago, and about the court battles over Zoe." The blood drained from Mia's face. Those painful chapters of her life had been sealed by the court, or so she thought. "How?" "Her father has connections in the legal system," Jackson said grimly. "I'm sorry, Mia. I never intended to bring this kind of scrutiny into your life." Mia stood abruptly, pacing to the window. The rain lashed against the glass, mirroring her internal turmoil. What does she intend to do with this information? She threatened to make it public, to suggest that the Foundation is employing someone with a troubled past. It's nonsense, of course, but scandal of any kind could damage Holloway's reputation. "And your reputation," Mia added quietly, "if you're associated with us." Jackson moved to stand beside her at the window. "My reputation isn't my concern right now." "Then what is?" "You," he said simply, "and Zoe. I won't allow Victoria to disrupt your lives because of me." Mia turned to face him, studying his expression. "Why do you care so much? We barely know each other." Jackson was silent for a long moment. "The night of the gala, when you sat at my table by mistake, it was my sister's birthday. She would have been 30 that day." His voice grew softer. "I almost didn't attend the event. I was in a dark place, remembering her. And then you appeared. This honest, unpretentious woman who spoke to me like a person, not a bank account or a business opportunity." He looked down at her, his dark eyes intense. "Do you know how rare that is in my world? To meet someone genuine." The vulnerability in his voice touched something in Mia, but she maintained her composure. "That doesn't explain your interest in my daughter, doesn't it?" Jackson smiled faintly. "My sister was 6 when I first took her for ice cream after school. It became our tradition, every Friday no matter what. When you mentioned Zoe was the same age, it felt like a sign." "A sign of what?" "That perhaps I was being given a second chance to be part of something meaningful," he admitted. "Something beyond patents and profit margins." The raw honesty in his words made Mia's carefully constructed walls begin to crumble. Still, years of self-reliance had taught her caution. "What about Victoria's threats?" Jackson's expression hardened. "Leave Victoria to me. I've already spoken with my legal team. She won't bother you again." "You can't know that." "I can," he interrupted, "because I've offered her father the contract he's been pursuing for years, with the condition that Victoria ceases all investigation into you or Holloway immediately." Mia stared at him. "You would use a multi-million-dollar business deal as leverage to protect me?" "Without hesitation," Jackson confirmed. "Why?" Jackson reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and took her hand in his. "Because in 3 brief encounters, you've made me feel more alive than I have in years. Because your daughter reminds me of the purest, most innocent love I've ever known. Because when I'm with you both, I can imagine a future beyond boardrooms and balance sheets." His thumb traced gentle circles on her palm. "I'm not asking for anything, Mia. I just want you to know that the position at Holloway is yours, regardless of what happens between us personally. No strings attached." Mia looked down at their joined hands. "And what if I wanted strings?" The question hung between them, loaded with possibility. Before Jackson could respond, his office door burst open. "Jackson, you can't do this!" Victoria Sinclair stormed in, immaculately dressed in a designer suit, her blonde hair perfectly styled despite the rain. She stopped short at the sight of their clasped hands. "So it's true. You're actually involved with this nobody." Jackson dropped Mia's hand and stepped forward, his posture protective. Victoria, this is a private meeting. Leave now, or I'll have security escort you out. Victoria's perfect features contorted with rage. My father built his company from nothing. He deserves that contract on merit, not because you're trying to buy his daughter's silence. Your father is getting exactly what his company deserves, Jackson said coldly. Your behavior, however, deserves nothing but contempt. The investigation stops now or the deal is off. Victoria's gaze shifted to Mia, hatred blazing in her blue eyes. Do you know what you're getting into, honey? He'll tire of playing daddy to your brat within months. Men like Jackson don't do family life. That's enough. Jackson's voice carried such authority that even Victoria flinched. Security is on their way. I suggest you leave with some dignity and tact. For a moment, it seemed Victoria might continue her tirade. Instead, she straightened her shoulders and smoothed her expression. You'll regret this, Jackson. Both of you will. With that final threat, she turned and stalked out. In the silence that followed, Mia found herself trembling slightly. Well, that was exactly why I typically avoid entanglements, Jackson finished with a grim smile. He ran a hand through his hair, the first genuinely discomposed gesture she'd seen from him. I'm sorry you had to experience that. Did you mean what you said? Mia asked quietly. About the job being mine regardless. Every word, Jackson assured her. The offer stands on its own merits. Your qualifications are exactly what the program needs. Mia took a deep breath. Then I accept. The position, that is. And the strings? Jackson asked, a hint of vulnerability returning to his expression. Before Mia could answer, her phone rang. Zoe's school. Her heart lurched as she answered. Miss Bennett, this is Nurse Collins. Zoe took a fall during recess. She's okay, but she hit her head and we think she should be checked by a doctor as a precaution. I'll be right there, Mia said, already gathering her purse. She turned to Jackson, panic evident in her eyes. Zoe's hurt. I need to go. I'll drive you, he said immediately, grabbing his keys. My car will be faster than waiting for a taxi in this rain. There was no time to argue. Minutes later, they were speeding through Boston's rain-slicked streets, Jackson navigating traffic with the same focused intensity he brought to everything. She'll be all right, he said, sensing Mia's anxiety. Children are resilient. At the school, they found Zoe sitting in the nurse's office, a small bandage on her forehead and tears dried on her cheeks. Her face lit up when she saw them. Mommy! Mr. Jack! She exclaimed, as though their joint appearance was the most natural thing in the world. I fell off the monkey bars. While Mia examined the bump on Zoe's head, Jackson charmed the school nurse into providing a detailed account of the incident. Definitely a precautionary visit to the doctor, he agreed after hearing the nurse's assessment. What followed was a whirlwind afternoon. Jackson drove them to his private physician, who confirmed that Zoe had a mild concussion but no serious injury. Throughout it all, Jackson remained a calm, reassuring presence, holding doors, asking thoughtful questions of the doctor, even producing a stuffed bear from the hospital gift shop that Zoe immediately christened Mr. Bumps. By early evening, they were back at Mia's apartment, Zoe resting on the couch with her new bear, while Jackson ordered dinner delivery from her favorite restaurant. You didn't have to stay, Mia said, as they stood in her small kitchen, away from Zoe's ears. I'm sure you had important meetings this afternoon. Nothing more important than this, Jackson replied, his gaze steady. Though I should probably go once dinner arrives. You both need rest. Mia studied him. This powerful man who had rearranged his entire day without hesitation, who had shown such tenderness toward her daughter, who was now standing in her modest kitchen, looking completely at ease despite the surroundings being worlds away from his usual environment. You could stay, she suggested softly. For dinner, I mean. Jackson's eyes warmed. I'd like that. The evening unfolded with surprising ease. Dinner around Mia's small table, Jackson entertaining Zoe with stories, careful to keep her laughing without exacerbating her headache. After Zoe was tucked in bed, they sat together on the couch, a comfortable silence between them. You're good in a crisis, Mia observed, curling her legs beneath her. Jackson smiled. Years of business emergencies provide decent training, though I prefer today's crisis to boardroom battles, oddly enough. Even with a crying 6-year-old? Especially with her, he said, his expression softening. She's remarkable, Mia. You've done an amazing job raising her. The genuine admiration in his voice touched Mia deeply. It hasn't been easy. After her father left, "You don't have to explain," Jackson said gently. "I want to," Mia replied. "If we're considering strings, you should know what you're getting into." She told him then about her ex-husband's betrayal, his attempt to gain custody of Zoe when his new relationship failed, the restraining order after his threatening behavior. Jackson listened without interruption, his expression darkening only when she described the fear she'd lived with during those tumultuous months. "He hasn't contacted us in over a year now," Mia finished. "He moved to California, but those experiences, they made me cautious, especially about letting people into Zoe's life." "Understandably," Jackson said. He reached for her hand, his touch gentle. "Thank you for trusting me with this." "You trusted me too," she reminded him. "About your sister." Jackson nodded, his thumb tracing patterns on her palm again. "Sophia was the purest soul I've ever known. Losing her, it changed everything. I built Hayes Innovations with a single purpose initially, to fund research into better treatments for childhood leukemia." "That's why you visit the children's hospital," Mia realized. "Yes, though it's more than obligation now. Those kids, they remind me to keep perspective, to remember what matters." In the soft lamplight of her living room, Mia saw Jackson Hayes clearly for the first time. Not the billionaire, not the powerful CEO, but the man who still carried his sister's memory, who found meaning in helping others, who looked at her daughter with genuine affection rather than obligation. "About those strings," Mia said softly. "I think I'd like to explore them, slowly." Jackson's smile transformed his face. "Slowly sounds perfect." He leaned forward, his gaze questioning. When Mia nodded slightly, he closed the distance between them, his lips meeting hers in a kiss that was gentle yet filled with promise. 6 months later, Mia stood at the edge of a field where 30 children, participants in Holloway's summer program, were learning to launch the small drones they had built in their coding class. The program had been an overwhelming success, with Hayes Innovations funding enabling them to serve twice as many children as initially planned. "Miss Bennett," a young boy called, waving excitedly as his drone executed a perfect figure-8 pattern. "Look what I programmed it to do." "That's excellent, Tyler," she called back, marking his achievement on her clipboard. Her new role as project director had proven to be everything she'd hoped for, challenging, rewarding, and perfectly aligned with her background in education. "Impressive," said a familiar deep voice behind her. Mia turned to find Jackson watching the children with obvious pride. Although they had been officially dating for months now, the sight of him still made her heart skip. "You're early," she smiled, accepting his quick kiss. "We weren't expecting you until the demonstration at 3. I wrapped up my meeting ahead of schedule," he explained. "Besides, I promised Zoe I'd help with her drone team before the competition." As if summoned by her name, Zoe came running across the field, her team members trailing behind her. "Mr. Jack, you came!" She launched herself into his arms, and he swung her up onto his shoulders with practiced ease. The shoulder rides had indeed become a regular occurrence. "I promised, didn't I?" he reminded her, securing her legs. "Now, what seems to be the problem with your drone?" While Jackson helped the children troubleshoot their programming, Mia watched with a full heart. The past 6 months had seen changes she could never have imagined that night at the gala, not just in her career, but in her personal life as well. Jackson had kept his word about taking things slowly, integrating himself into their lives with patience and consideration. Weekend outings had become regular family time. Movie nights at Mia's apartment had gradually evolved to include occasional stays at Jackson's penthouse, where Zoe now had her own room decorated exactly to her specifications. The transformation in Jackson had been equally remarkable. The serious, intensely private man she'd first met had revealed a playful side that emerged primarily around Zoe. His demanding schedule had been rearranged to accommodate school events and family dinners. Even his board members had noticed the change, commenting on their CEO's newfound balance. Victoria Sinclair had made good on her threat to spread rumors, but they had fallen flat in the face of Hayes Innovations' public commitment to educational initiatives. The massive contract her father's company received had eventually pacified her wounded pride, and she had retreated to Europe for an extended vacation. Later that afternoon, as the children demonstrated their drones for proud parents, Jackson slipped his arm around Mia's waist. I have something to ask you, he said quietly. Actually, two things. Mia looked up at him questioningly. First, he said, how would you feel about making our living arrangements more permanent? I know you love your apartment, but my place has a yard, better schools nearby. Are you asking us to move in with you? Mia clarified, heart racing. I am, Jackson confirmed. No pressure. But I find myself missing you both terribly when you're not there. Mia smiled. We miss you too. And Zoe has been not so subtly hinting that she wants to see Mr. Bumps's forever home more often. Is that a yes? It's a definite maybe, Mia teased. What's the second question? Jackson reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Mia's breath caught. It's not what you think, he said quickly, opening it to reveal a delicate pendant rather than a ring. At least, not yet. I promised you slow, remember? The pendant was a simple silver compass, small diamonds marking the cardinal points. It's beautiful, Mia said, touching it gently. Sophia had one similar to this, Jackson explained. Our parents gave it to her when she was diagnosed, to remind her that she would find her way through the darkness. His eyes held Mia's. You and Zoe have been my compass, Mia. You've shown me the way to a life I never thought I'd have. Tears pricked Mia's eyes as she allowed him to fasten the necklace around her throat. I love you, she said simply, the words still new enough between them to carry special weight. I love you too, Jackson replied, his expression serious. Both of you. And when you're ready, truly ready, there will be a ring. But for now, this seems like the right next step. Mia reached up to touch the compass pendant, warm against her skin. It's perfect, she agreed. Moving in together, building our life one step at a time, that feels right. As Zoe ran toward them, her face alight with the joy of her team's successful drone demonstration, Mia thought about the remarkable journey that had begun with a simple mistake, sitting at the wrong table. How one moment of embarrassment had led to this new life, this chance at a family she had stopped believing was possible. Jackson lifted Zoe up between them, and she chatted excitedly about her drone's performance, secure in the love that surrounded her. Over her head, Mia's eyes met Jackson's, a world of understanding passing between them. Some mistakes, it turned out, were the best kind of accidents, the kind that led you exactly where you were meant to be all along.